Next speaker is Tara Denham. She is the director of the Center of International Digital Policies here in Canada. And so I would like you to speak about this problem more from the global perspective. And I also would like to ask you to focus a bit on the problems which are caused in the unregulated world of the World Wide Web, and especially in the social media. As a legislator in the European Parliament, I experienced how difficult it is, since social media are meanwhile seen as the new space of real freedom, how difficult it is, or has become, to discuss and to decide on any regulation of this world, this artificial world. Please, Tara.
Thank you. Easy questions. So I would like to build on what everyone else has been talking about. So the Center for International Digital Policy, those that aren't familiar with it, it's actually housed in Global Affairs Canada, so that is the foreign ministry equivalent here in Canada. So I'd first like to just give a few words about what that type of work is. And so there's actually two sides of that shop, which actually tackle both sides of this issue. And the first side is actually called the G7 Rapid Response Mechanism. This is a team that was set up last year after Canada had the presidency of the G7. And there was a lot of conversations around threats to democracy and needing to understand the changing dynamics of that threat environment. And as James was already mentioning, it's not just looking at the large-scale kinetic incidents that trigger certain responses. We have to have a better understanding of the full spectrum of threats and the manipulation of some of the democratic processes and systems, actually using those systems to try and undermine or break trust with the governance and the elected officials and democracies and question the system itself. And so in the conversations that took place, it centered a lot around what I think some of the conversations have been here, which is we all have to better understand what's happening. We have to share information about what's happening. We have to be more open about that ecosystem and what's taking place. And that's the crux of what this rapid response mechanism is. So it's information across the G7, trying to shed light on the trends and tactics that we're seeing. So where we've had some conversations about needing to understand what is disinformation, what does it look like, we're actually trying to pull up and not focus on the narrative itself, but where are we seeing different tactics to target and undermine democracy. Disinformation is one, but there's already been mention of a whole slew of others. So as G7 governments, we're trying to exchange information as quickly as possible because of how quickly that the tactics are changing. This is a space that from week to week you start to see different movements, and so the objective here is to be able to share that information quickly. But it's not only across the G7, we also work with academics, some of the institutes, the Helsinki Center, researchers, anyone that wants to participate in this information sharing. We actually are able to, or we want to be able to share that information across the broader community. And so that is sort of the driver behind this G7 rapid response mechanism, is to try to increase our understanding of what's happening.